Anytime, anywhere. Listen to more than 300 stations, along with more than 3,000 podcasts from your home area or across the U.S., all free.
With the radio.com app.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
That's right. That's where we're at on Twitter at JMike1400. We're also on StreamYard. StreamYard is a audio-visual service. And if you go to my Facebook page, which is at AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, or yourfortdodge.com, or the KVFD news site, where else? YouTube, my YouTube page. You could probably Alpha Media's YouTube page, one of the two. But really, you can see as well as hear what happens in the studio. And today, and I'm going to adjust the camera. You will be able to see the beautiful face and mellifluent tones of here. Let me get your microphone on. Of David Ferrick, who is the city manager, the Ayatollah of rock and rolla, and from what I hear, one of the all-time lover boys out of Illinois. So there we go, ladies.
You forgot the best city manager Fort Dodge has ever had.
Best city manager that Fort Dodge has ever had. Of course, he's the only city manager.
Yes.
So,
14 years of running, best city manager.
Have you been city manager that long?
I have.
Wow. Well, good for you.
I know.
You've weathered the storm. I know that. I know there were some people who, he's not worth that much. They made about $1.25 when they were working. But anyway, we won't revisit that today. I'm glad to be back with you, David. Of course, I was sick with COVID for a while.
I know. I saw it on Facebook. Yeah.
And it took a while for me to recover, but it's my great pleasure to report that I'm in full health. And my strength is probably at 90%. Not that I was the Incredible Hulk at the first point, but I'm never felt better in my life, and
good.
I'm ready to go. And by the way,
looks like you lost some weight too.
In December 2018, I weighed 282.
Wow.
And right now I weigh about 210, 215. Now, some of that from December to May, I lost a lot of weight because I thought I had to.
Uh-huh.
And, I was getting older and I just don't have the frame. I don't have your massive, impressive frame. I didn't have that sort of weight or frame to carry that much weight.
Yeah.
So I got down, was it May or sometime in summer, I guess, I got down to 241. So then COVID came around in fall, in October. And I lost 30 pounds in November.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was down at 202.
That is a common story. So, I'm glad you're back. I had COVID too in November, and it's a beast. It's a tough. Fortunately, I didn't end up hospitalized, but it's a tough disease to deal with. I think I lost close to, I don't weigh myself a lot, but I think I did lose close to 20 pounds. I weighed myself just out of curiosity some point. I think I've probably put it back on though.
Well,
regained my health. And it's a slow road to get back to recovery. I think that's one of the surprises that I think people realize when they get COVID is it's not like a stomach flu where you bounce back, and in 2 days you're feeling normal. It's in my case, it was several weeks before I felt kind of back to normal.
That's what the doctors told me, because they've told me that there have been cases where people have it 3, 4, 5 days, and like Jane Morgan across the hall at KKZ Radio, Jane was homesick for 5 days, and okay, I feel fine. She came back to work, and that's I had a friend I went out to Washington with, Spokane, Washington with. He got COVID, but he had it about 5 days. But some of us, like me, and I know there's a couple other guys in Fort Dodge, get a bad case of it. And the doctors are quite frank. They said, we don't know about this COVID. We don't know where it comes from. We don't, this was before they had a vaccine, and we don't know the results of the vaccine yet. But, the doctors don't know what to do about it. They can just try to curb its spread. And by the way, unless there's a big story like the Georgia Senate race on WHO Channel 13 tonight, I'll be on Channel 13 with Dave Price, who I've known off and on over the years. And we'll talk about some of my COVID experiences, and since I had such a nasty case of it. But, he tried to get under the skin a little bit. He asked, when you realized there was a possibility you might die in the hospital, what did you think of it? I said, well, and this is the truth, I thought about how doggone lucky I'd been over the
Oh,
years.
wow.
You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't happy about looking at leaving
Yeah.
because I still think I have some work to do, but I was not terrified. You know, I'm not trying to hold myself up as a hero or a brave person. I just I felt calm.
Well, that's good.
The only way I can describe it. Anyway, David Firkia is my therapist today, apparently.
No, we haven't talked in so long.
No, we haven't. The big question I have is, did the University of Iowa regain consciousness or regain sanity and get us a decent swim team again?
No.
I know your son has excelled at swimming and was on the team. And
so the answer to the question is no. A little bit more detail. So they are having a swim season this year, but the administration says this is the last year for both men's and women's swimming at Iowa. And they just actually announced their schedule. They're going to have a three what I'd call dual meets, even though we look more like triangular meets. There's three teams at each dual meet. They're going to have 3 dual meets in the month of January, and then do their Big Ten championships. Looks like it's scheduled for the first weekend in March. So that's great. I'm going to get to see my kid swim again. Might be for the last time. I hope not. There's still a pretty solid effort out there to try to save the program. There's many donors the pledges for the program is almost $3 million to donate it to save the program. And that's
outstanding.
Well, and the thing is that, I'm not using University of Iowa's budget numbers because I don't think they're accurate. I mean, legit, that would run both programs, I think, for 2 years. The tough thing is, I don't think you're going to get the administration to reverse their decision because, if anything, the money situation is getting bleaker with not having people in the stands for basketball
there's
games.
a lot of ego involved there too,
Well, yeah,
we've made the decision.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of it is ego. You had William and Mary reverse their decision and reinstate swimming, but that's after the athletic director resigned. So imagine that. So, there is a concerted effort to try to establish swimming at Iowa as a model for all Olympic sports at, big schools, to say this can be a self-supported program, to not worry about football and basketball revenue to sustain your program, because that's just not a healthy arrangement. And we, the group working on it, I'm part of, we think it is sustainable. But it's just a matter of convincing the administration to that. Now they do have students working on it as kind of a project. So it'll be interesting to see how those results are when they report back, and whether that'll matter or not to the administration. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear that the financial support, at least from the parents and the fans of the program, are still there. You know who the highest paid employee in the state of Iowa is?
It's Kirk Ferentz.
That's Kirk Ferentz, right? $4 to $5 million range for him. You think if we can pay old 8 and 5 Kirk $5 million a year, that we should be able to keep a swim program?
Well, if you added up the money that they paid for that lifting coach to leave quietly,
oh my God,
and the money that the athletic department gave their football coaches in raises, that would probably run the swim program for
some years.
Yeah.
Chris Doyle, I love that guy. I mean, he's Ferentz apparently runs the University of Iowa. I mean, Doyle put how many kids in the hospital several years ago? 13 kids because of that rhabdosis. He worked them too hard, in essence. And that apparently was not a concern of Ferentz's. He just, he was away on a recruiting trip, and when he came back, it was, what are you bothering me with this 13 kids in the hospital thing? I know a few of them almost died, but the operative word is almost, and then he created a Coach of the Year award, gave it to Chris Doyle, and then discontinued the award. That was the only year that they had this little award from Kirk Ferentz. Anybody else in the state of Iowa who ran a program like that would get fired and run out of the state. Ferentz gets a raise.
I think someone said Barta got like athletic director of the year from the Athletic Directors Association, like the year his contract was coming up last time. It's like, well, that's not self-serving, is it?
Not too. No, I don't know. Ferentz must have pictures of Barta naked or something. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I know there's a lot of University of Iowa fans out there that are going to burn down the studio now. But, Tom Herman at the University of Texas, was 35 and 28 in 5 years, and they fired him over the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, the same record, Ferentz would have got a contract extension and a raise.
Yeah, I mean, universities have different philosophies. I mean, look at Nebraska. They fired a guy that had one season where he
Bo
won
Pelini,
less than 10 games, and they
Yeah.
fired him. And then I don't think it took the new Frost, and it took him 2 years to get to 10 games.
Yeah. Well, Bo Pelini, I remember the athletic director at the time at Nebraska, and I was at the game. The University of Iowa blew a 17-point lead in the third quarter and lost to Nebraska. I've hated Nebraska football team my whole life, and this is the first time I saw Nebraska. And I'm sitting there in the third quarter, man. We've got this.
Yeah.
Not only are we going to beat Nebraska, I'm in the stands live. You know, we had great seats, the whole thing. And Nebraska came back and won. So right after the game, Pelini gets fired, or that week, and the athletic director, it was brought up by the media to the athletic director. Gosh, you know, he had a good season, and he didn't give up when Nebraska played the University of Iowa. He came back and beat him. And the athletic director said, "Well, you got to look at Iowa. You know, you got to look at Iowa where Iowa's been and where there'll always be. You know, beating. In other words, beating Iowa, coming back from a 17-point lead with when you're playing Iowa is no big deal. You know, we shouldn't have been that. Yeah. We should have been beating the hell out of them the whole game. That guy's gone too. Yeah. I mean, they just fire everybody at Nebraska."
Well, you know, one of the things that's entirely evident is in major college sports, it's about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is there. You know, I don't know how it works from a business standpoint, but it's definitely about relationships with people. I mean, people get, you know, it's not about records as much. I think somewhere in college and pros too, it's not as much about records as it is relationships and
within the coaching fraternity. Yeah.
It's, I mean, that's a pretty tight fraternity.
That's a pretty tight little fraternity, and they all make a lot of money, and they all kind of look out for each other, which is, you know, it's fine. City Manager David Furyk is our guest. Yes, we're going to call and talk.
Are we going to talk city stuff?
Yeah, we're going to talk a little city stuff.
Let's talk sports.
I'm ready to do that. I talk sports with Rob Jones today. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, senior high's playing Ames tonight. Should be a good little game.
Oh, well, yeah.
I said a little earlier, last time I saw a Fort Dodge Ames game here in Fort Dodge, Harrison Barnes was playing. And it's been quite a long time ago. I think Harrison Barnes is still in the NBA.
I think so.
But that guy was so good. I mean, the Fort Dodge kids fought it all the way. I don't even remember who was on the Fort Dodge squad at that time. But they really gave it 110%. But Barnes was so overwhelming and so dominating. I mean, he could run the length of the court and dribble like he was a 5'5" guard, you know, and lay it up and dunk, and just he was out of this world.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was completely dominant.
Yeah, he was. Anyway, we have an animal control problem. And the sad thing is, and I got this from the newspaper this morning, the number one complaint is dead animals in the street. I suppose this time of year, that is a deal, but I just hate to hear that animals die of neglect like that. I don't know what can be done about it, but I'm ready to help.
Honestly, it's not neglect, it's car accidents. I mean, you know,
car accidents.
When you talk about animals dying in the streets, it's usually, I mean, the major call is roadkill. So that's where a deer, a dog, a cat, a squirrel, well, not so much squirrels. People kind of take care of their own squirrels. They can do that, but, or take care of, you know, if it's in front of their house, or some other larger animal that, you know, needs to get taken care of. That seems to be the majority of the calls. The animal control officer is a well, a little bit of background. It's an independent contractor. The contract is with the county, and then the city has an agreement with the county. You know, an intergovernmental agreement to co-manage and pay, and we actually pay more because we have way more calls than the county does for the animal control. So again, you know, the question was asked to Chief Porter, what's the majority of calls? And Chief Porter, you know, I think quickly looked it up and saw that it mostly was roadkill. But typically the animal control officer comes in when there is, you know, barking dog, even though that's hard to prove. A dog at loose is probably, you know, one of the key assignments is to try to catch it. You know, dog catcher is a term forever.
Yeah. Dogs out in the cold, I know had a real problem here in the neighborhood.
If you know, feral cats or cats running large, the animal control officer has some live traps. He can trap cats.
Is it still Blaine Hemp or not?
Yeah, still Blaine.
Still
Yeah.
Blaine. Okay.
And then, we do get some calls on animal neglect, whether it's dogs out in the cold or dogs out in the sun, in the full sun and no water, in the summertime. And that's a shame to see because these are people that just aren't, it's a people problem. It's not a dog problem.
Oh, I believe that.
Most of the stuff really isn't an animal problem. It's a people problem.
I believe that.
Not being responsible for the pets they've taken over. So, I mean, the gist of the discussion last night is, and again, this was in the context of a budget workshop. So there was no decision made to do on animal control other than if you're going to look at something different than what arrangement we have now with the contract with Blaine Hemp, or if you're going to add to that, like we talked about adding a helping support a program that will catch feral cats and sterilize them and then release them back versus, euthanize them or kill them, that we need to put a little more money in the budget than what we had planned because we had kind of a status quo budget. So ultimately the council directed us to add money to the budget. And then from there, we'll have to look at what are the things that we should or could do different in regards to animal control.
Yeah. Well, you were very bold this morning and just now, if you really want to do something about this problem, we need more money. I don't, Blaine Hemp did not tell me this story, but someone told me a few years ago that Blaine had got a call on a Saturday while he was at a wedding of a relative. Mm-hmm. And the person demanded that leave the wedding. Yeah. I don't know if this could be a baloney story. And again, Blaine Hemp, I haven't even talked to him in several years. Well, I know who he is, of course, but
I could see that as being true because the contract for the animal control officer is a 24/7, 365 response. So, a contract.
Wow, he signed up for that?
Yeah. Now, yeah. And not too many people have chosen to do that. We had Jerry Messerly.
Yeah, Jerry was
years
doing
ago.
it, yeah.
And I think Jerry, that was a more of a passion than an occupation.
Everybody liked Jerry.
Yeah. And then we went a gap where we didn't have anybody. Then Blaine has decided to take it on. Blaine's done it for a number of years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the system, the contract is set up that, yes, he's supposed to respond to all those calls. It's up to him as an independent contractor, if he has something personal to do, have coverage.
Right.
So again, and some people's, there's a list of things he needs to respond on and when he needs to respond. And there's certain things he's not going to respond on. It is outside the contract.
Right.
Like if you got a raccoon that's getting into your dog food because you left it on your back porch, that's not an animal control function.
Well, and you really find out what kind of people are totally dependent on the government to change. Mom, that raccoon keeps eating my dog's food. Yeah. You better call the city.
If there's a raccoon that's acting rabid in your yard, then that's something animal control can deal with. But just a wild animal like a raccoon, possum, squirrel acting normal, even if it's interacting like getting something out of your garage, that's a homeowner's problem.
I was going to say a rabid raccoon. I got a shotgun, David. There'd just be a big boom and that problem's over. I wouldn't call animal control or anything.
Yeah, that's a funny story. Next time you got Keith on, you'll have to ask him, what's animal control like in the county?
Same way, believe me, trust me.
That's what he says.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, this is a city issue, not a county issue. We are going to have control animals in the county.
You bet, yeah. I wonder if you still can. I don't know if Keith ever did it, but a lot of farmers had 12 gauges inside their combines in the fall because they could go pheasant hunting.
Oh, yeah.
Did pretty well, too.
Shoot from the combine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Talented.
I remember being at a kid stand out at my uncle's farm. If there was a stray dog he didn't like, he just got out the 22, and that was it.
My wife tells that story. She grew up in a farm in Canada, and if the neighbor's dog comes on your property, you take it back once. And then you tell them we're not taking this dog back again.
That's
right. And if a dog comes and eats your chickens, there's no taking back. It's just killed.
Yeah, that's right. If so, that's money. They're taking your money.
Yeah.
A dog is robbing you, so that's it for that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Mayor Bemrick and Denny Ploutz, I think, have insisted for a long time that we need a big fire department. And
a big fire department.
Well, a big, lot of people, and a well-trained fire department. And they give full credit for our fire department, in part to bring Cargill and CJ America to our town, because CJ America and Cargill apparently wanted assurances that if there was a major accident out there, fire or something, that we had the ability to respond.
Mhm.
Makes sense to me. But Jeff Nemmers, who apparently is looking for another job, mentioned today or yesterday at the city council meeting that we seem to be a little top heavy as far as employees in the fire department.
Oh, I think you're taking that out of context.
I'm taking it out of context.
Yeah,
No, I thought it was such a good story the way I put it.
The way Jeff's saying is they are, and the police and fire are our biggest budgets.
Sure.
There are most people, and so what Jeff is saying is they are employee heavy budgets. By far the majority of the money spent on the fire department is spent for the employees, and of the police department is spent for the employees. I mean, a typical departmental budget, for a city might be 75% or so personnel costs. I think fire is probably closer to 90. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where police is off the top of my head, but it's just the nature of the job requires highly trained people. And
how many police officers do we have?
41, I think. 41 sworn?
Somewhere
around there. It could be off by one or two. And
we have more people over at the fire department than we have at the police department.
We have 47 full-timers at the fire department, but that includes the paramedics.
Okay.
So, you got 30, is it 33 or 36 firefighters and then 12 full-time paramedics and there's part-time paramedics.
Yeah. So you're drawing that line. You're making that distinction for what reason?
Well, because that's it was a couple of years ago where we were at 30 firefighters, and then we went up to 33, and then we went to 36. Even though our firefighters are also paramedics and do paramedic duties, I don't want anyone to think I'm segregating, but
right.
But it's got both. And that when the city took over the ambulance services, when we added the staff, and it went up a lot, because before it used to be, the police department had the most staff.
Right. Yeah. Gosh, I thought I had a controversy I could work on the mayor with Thursday, but I guess I don't.
No,
never said, Mr. Mayor, that.
No, he didn't say they're top heavy. He said their budgets are. It's quoted in there, and I'm assuming that's an accurate quote. But it was, the context was that most of their budget goes towards personnel.
Here's the quote in the paper that I read this morning, and I really thought I had the mayor this time. According to the paper, Mr. Nemmers said it is a large budget in the general fund, said Jeff Nemmers, the city clerk and finance director. And I already thought he should be looking for a job. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Mr. Nemmers went on to say it's very personnel heavy.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah, and I recall it being like that. And what he didn't mean it was like top heavy, like too many bosses or too many people. That's just and what that does is that creates a lot of inflexibility. Mm-hmm. That may not be good English. Maybe it's like
close enough for a town this size.
No flexibility in that. You have kind of set wages, kind of year in, year out for most of those individuals.
Sure.
And, it's hard to reduce staff for, that kind of stuff without having a significant service impact. So, part of with police and fire, is that it's hard to, and they consume a good portion of the budget, and it's hard to be creative or do anything, be flexible as we can with some other departments. And the shame of it is that police and fire are pretty much all paid from property tax, which the state regulates that we can only charge $8.10 for general purposes, which is police and fire, parks and rec, administration, things like that. That number has been the same for like over 2 decades, and it's like, folks, you're you're hamstringing us as far as our ability to raise revenues, to provide services locally, because of the constraints the state law puts on cities as far as how much they can tax.
All right, David Furick has been our guest. He's the city manager. Great to talk to you again today, David.
Thanks, Mike.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
It's 4:34, the news, and Councilman Conrad coming up.
Hey, this is Lisa Stofan. Heard the Mark Patrick weight loss hypnosis hype? Well, I attended because my father stopped smoking with hypnosis. Hypnosis eliminated my desire for soda and fast food, made me want to exercise, and I lost 60 pounds in 6 months. My energy level exploded. I went to another session to deal with some other problem foods, and I lost another 10 pounds. In fact, I brought my husband. He lost weight. More important, cholesterol and blood pressure improved. My friend went and she lost 20 pounds in the first 2 months. So does Mark Patrick hypnosis work? Oh yeah, it works. Nothing has changed my life more. Well, except maybe my husband. He's so proud of me. Makes me cry.
Wow, that is awesome. Congratulations. And that could be you. Join Mark Patrick's hypnosis seminar and lose weight, stop smoking, or end anxiety for only $49.99 guaranteed or your money back. Due to coronavirus, the seminar will now be online live Thursday, January 28th or Saturday, January 30th for the Fort Dodge area. Register now at markpatrickseminars.com.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News Update, I'm Rob Jones. A Webster County man is facing multiple charges after being arrested last week in Greene County. 33-year-old Fort Dodge resident Jonathan Kennedy was arrested on an outstanding warrant last Thursday morning at the Casey's General Store in Grand Junction. The felony warrant was for an alleged burglary incident from early December. According to the police report, Kennedy was searched upon his arrest. The search turned up marijuana and meth along with stolen property. Kennedy was then charged with third or subsequent offense of possession of a controlled substance and another count of controlled substance possession. The city of Jefferson has a new city attorney for the first time in nearly 3 decades. David Moraine has been named to the position, replacing longtime Jefferson city attorney Bob Schwarzkopf, who held the office for 29 years. Moraine graduated from Drake University Law School in 2006 after getting his undergrad degree at Simpson College. He has served as the city attorney in multiple towns in Iowa prior and was a Greene County magistrate judge from 2016 to 2019. Moraine officially took office on New Year's Day. High school basketball from last night and games heard on Sunny 99.7 and yourfortdodge.com. St. Edmund got a road sweep at Webster City. The girls' game would be a back-and-forth affair with the game being tied 8 different times. The game was knotted up at 29 when Leah Johnson would go to the free throw line with 4 seconds left for St. Edmund.
Her second free throw is up and good. The most important free throw of the game for the Gales goes through as Leah Johnson gets into the scoring column.
Casey Miners on the call of the Johnson free throw. That put the Gales up 30-29. Webster City will have one final shot.
Schultz is going to quickly dribble it up in the court with 2 seconds left. First shot in the lane is up. No good, and the Gales are going to get their first wins here tonight in Webster City, 30-29.
The win broke a 29-game losing skid for the St. Edmund girls program that dated back to February of 2019. It's the first win of the season and the first win under head coach C.J. Tracy. In the boys' game, it would be high drama as well as St. Edmund would bounce back after trailing 7-0 early. The Gales got back-to-back threes late in the game from Anthony Lacina to keep pace. Drew Schaefer would get a bucket to put the Gales up for good with under a minute, and Quentin McCarville would knock down 2 free throws late to help ice the 52-49 win for St. Edmund. For Webster City, Tyler Olson and Ty McKinney had 19 each. Drew Schaefer led St. Edmund with 17. Sophomore Jackson Palmer had 11, and Hayden Mayer added 9.
For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Cloudy skies expected this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 39. Southeast winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Overcast skies tonight, chance for snow, lows around 24. Cloudy skies tomorrow, chance of snow, highs level off around 33. A dusting of snow tomorrow. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 35.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report. Stocks closed higher as investors await the outcome of Georgia's Senate runoff elections, which are expected to determine the balance of power in Washington. Shares of oil and energy giants rose after oil prices broke above $50 a barrel for the first time since last February. The Dow rising 168 points, the Nasdaq up 121, S&P 500 up 26. And the New York Stock Exchange reversed its decision to delist China's 3 largest telecommunications companies after consulting with regulatory authorities as a result of the NY CYSE move, shares of China Telecom, China Unicom, and China Mobile surged. And Macy's is shuttering 45 more locations this year as part of its 3-year plan to lower store count in order to focus on its more productive outlets. The closures are part of a previously announced plan to shut down 125 locations by 2023. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
Newsmax TV is the biggest thing on cable news, with shows including Dick Morris, Rudy Giuliani, Michelle Malkin, Diamond and Silk, Mike Huckabee, Alan Dershowitz, and more. Every night, watch Newsmax's #1 show, Greg Kelly Reports. Greg Kelly tells you the truth about Trump. Newsmax is on all major cable systems. Check your guide or tell your operator you want Newsmax. 30 million Americans watch Newsmax TV. And download the Newsmax app on your smartphone. It's free, so get Newsmax TV anytime, anywhere. Newsmax TV is the biggest thing on cable news, with shows including Dick Morris, Rudy Giuliani, Michelle Malkin, Diamond and Silk, Mike Huckabee, Alan Dershowitz, and more. Every night, watch Newsmax's #1 show, Greg Kelly Reports. Greg Kelly tells you the truth about Trump. Newsmax is on all major cable systems. Check your guide or tell your operator you want Newsmax. 30 million Americans watch Newsmax TV. And download the Newsmax app on your smartphone. It's free, so get Newsmax TV anytime, anywhere.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 440. Councilman Nevin Conrad is standing by, and we'll talk with Councilman Conrad in just a few minutes. First of all, the weather, 35 degrees, mostly cloudy for what's left of this afternoon. The National Weather Service has been telling us we're going to hit a high of 40 today, but it's not going to happen. The sun's going down, just about down now. So we're not going to get to 40 overnight. Some rain, freezing rain, chance of snow. Freezing rain early in the morning, so driving into work or driving into town tomorrow, please be careful. Chance of snow on Wednesday, tomorrow, cloudy with a high of 35. Thursday, mostly cloudy with a high of 31. On Friday, it'll be cloudy with a high of 28. Saturday, mostly cloudy with a high of 27. Sunday, sunny with a high of 26. And Monday, sunny with a high of 29. In other words, a typical January weather forecast in the Midwest. Right now, 35 degrees at AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South, Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucefuneralhome.com. I'm terribly sad to report the passing of George Hazel, George R. Hazel, longtime Fort Dodge resident, ran Pella Windows here in town for a number of years with his brother, of course. George passed away at Wayzata, Minnesota. On Sunday the 3rd, he was at Folkestone Assisted Living. There will be a mass of Christian burial for my friend George Hazel. Well, he is everybody's friend. There will be a mass of Christian burial for George Hazel at 10 o'clock in the morning, Saturday at Holy Trinity Church. Interment will follow at Corpus Christi Cemetery with full military honors presented by the VFW Post 1856 and the Iowa National Guard. George Hazel has passed. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucefuneralhome.com. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, 442. Nevin Conrad is next.
What's in store this week at Staples?
A great start to the new year.
Give your business a head start on the year with everything you need to be organized and productive.
Like storage solutions, the latest tech, and office essentials like paper and ink, all at amazing prices.
And now at Staples, earn 40% back in rewards when you buy any 2 ink or toner cartridges. Shop in store or pick up curbside.
Start the year right and save at Staples. Ends 1/9/21. Limit 4. Curbside available in most stores. Visit staples.com/40 and rewards for details.
Michael Devine, broadcasting live.
That's right. I'm broadcasting live. I'm not dead, though that was a rumor for a while. Oh, good. He's gone. Oh, we have our Nevin Conrad is our guest. Yeah, could you switch over there? We have to get your face. There we are. Yeah, we're if you go to my Facebook page, which is at AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, or any of the Alpha Media websites, you'll see as well as you'll hear as well as see what happens in the studio. And I really want to thank Nevin for being here. It's kind of last minute. In fact, I texted him a little before noon, and here he is. So that's great. Thank you for the cinnamon rolls while I was so sick. And I was sick. but I fully recovered, and that's the good news for today.
That's what did you in was the cinnamon rolls.
No, I don't think so. I forgot until you mentioned that you brought the cinnamon rolls. I hadn't had cinnamon rolls for a long, long time, but I'll tell you, once again, my faith in humanity has been restored. I mean, the people of Fort Dodge came out of the woodwork and brought soup, and your sister and I have been singing her praises for 2 days. County Supervisor Nikki Conrad, she was one of the first to call me. Nikki and I don't always see eye to eye. But it reminded me, that we should be able to go to different churches, different places of worship, not worship at all, be a conservative, be a liberal, be whatever we want to be in the United States of America. And we shouldn't be yelling at each other for things like that.
Yeah, we're a town of really good people. Iowa values, Fort Dodge values. We see it all the time. People willing to help out when other people are in need. And when I texted that morning, I don't know what I was expecting the response to be, but cinnamon rolls from J Mars. I was like, well, all right. That's what he wants.
Yeah. Nevin made the fatal mistake. Is there anything I can do? And I thought, you bet. Some cinnamon rolls. I didn't get the J Mars cinnamon rolls, but it was okay. It was all right because I had more soup. There was a lady here in town, down the south end of town, just a great girl. She brought soup every day. I bet 3 weeks, a month maybe.
Awesome.
And she can make soup too.
Yeah.
That's all I was capable of doing. I could barely walk.
Oh yeah.
In November I could barely walk at all. So I got over to the stove using a cane and heated up soup. That's all I could do.
Yeah.
But fortunately the soup was great.
Yeah, that works.
And with that doggone COVID, you can't really taste much.
Yeah.
That's why I lost all the weight, is because I put something in my mouth that tasted like paper or cardboard or something.
Yeah.
Who needs it?
Yep.
Anyway, on to the city council meeting last night. I just had David Ferrick in here, the Ayatollah himself, and he straightened us all out. But I do want to ask about the animal ordinance. Councilman Halter, by the way, Halter dude, will be in here Thursday at 3:00. I didn't know there was an animal control problem, I guess.
It's been kind of an ongoing discussion. I think what really started it was, jogging my memory, because March seems like it was 3 years ago.
It does, doesn't it?
So maybe about a year ago, maybe slightly over, we got approached at a meeting about, a response time issue, which, I think I've had the conversation with you before on this too. I've only had to call Blaine one time, and I mean, he was at my house within 15 minutes. So my personal experience with Blaine has been nothing but good.
Well, I'm going to repeat a story, and I don't know if it's true. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And I know Blaine Hebb, but he didn't tell me the story. From what I understand, he was on a Saturday afternoon, he was at the wedding of a relative, and he got a call from somebody, and they demanded he leave the wedding and come take care of this problem, which was not a major problem. I mean, there was not.
Yeah.
But I that would have been the end of my animal control career right there.
Well, and I think what might also help is just some education on what goes on too, because it's just Blaine, and it's a 24/7 thing.
And he signed up for that.
Oh yeah, he did. He signed up for it. So I don't really want, it's fair game to, it's a public service, so let's talk about it. But at the same point in time, I don't necessarily want to drag him through the mud on this, because he's one guy working a 24/7 job. And a lot of, I think, the confusion on it too stems from what is encompassed by that role. And I think you touched on it a little bit with David in the segment before, of it's not wild animals. That's outside the scope. And I think that's what a lot of the calls are, because other than that, you start talking about, a dog that's tied up outside in 0-degree weather. You get those calls and things like that. That's absolutely within the scope. But a raccoon that's in your backyard is outside of that scope. But the initial knee-jerk reaction is, I have to call animal control. I got a raccoon in my backyard and it's stuck inside the fence. So right. I think that having that conversation helps, but it's the same thing too, is, I mean, if we want to spend a little bit of extra money and explore, what additional services can we potentially provide, if that includes Blaine plus other things, by all means. If that includes a whole nother route, well, let's look at the options and see what we have. But I guess it's kind of a question mark at the moment, at least from my end. And last night was just a budget workshop hearing, so we're just kind of talking numbers right now.
Sure.
And in the end, the county is the one that contracts for animal control. The city just basically joins in on that animal control officer, since naturally Fort Dodge is within the county.
Yeah, well, I really think the solution is that I be allowed to load up some of my buddies in the back of a pickup truck with shotguns and beer and ride around town looking for criminal animals.
Just suspend a few laws for that.
Just suspend a few. Wouldn't be that many. It'd be a great night out. So there we go. There we go. Actually, I think I'm past that point in life. I think for that kind of fun is too much fun anymore. Anyway, Councilman Nevin Conrad is our guest. Yeah, the problem is, of course, we want something for nothing. I want something for nothing. Everybody wants something for nothing. And what we want here in Fort Dodge is 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, no holidays. We want the animal control officer to respond immediately as if he's actually the police or something. We can't do it with one person. Yeah. I mean, if we want this, we have to pay for it. I know it drives everybody crazy, but
and who else?
We have to pay.
Who else is going to step up into that role?
Yeah,
because I mean, to be honest, I mean, let's take a step back and be happy with what we have to some extent too, because I don't hear anybody else jumping up saying, I'll take on this 24/7, 365 role for the same price, or even from my knowledge, we don't have any other bids out there for it. So nobody's putting forward any offer to do it, let alone take the scrutiny of, if I'm, county over for a personal matter and I can't get there for a few hours, I'm going to be, getting raked through the coals, because it's that instant kind of demand thing. And like I said, let's put options on the table. Let's see what's available and have the discussion and go from there.
Well, you and I can have the discussion. We're going to have to spend more money, period. End of story. Mm-hmm. The only question is how much. If we want that level of service, we're going to have to hire more people.
Well, and that part of the conversation, that took place, that Councilman Menke brought up was the I'm gonna forget the name. It's a feral cat group that comes in out of Humboldt, and they trap these feral cats in different neighborhoods of town. They've started doing this basically just out of donations at the moment, and they'll trap them. They'll get them. Oh, is it spayed? Is that the right word?
Spayed is the right word.
And then they'll just bring them back and they'll release them into the neighborhood. So while it may look like the population of cats is not shrinking, they are no longer able to continually have, more stray cats out on the street. So, but again, they're working off of donations right now. And is that something that we allocate funds for in addition to the animal control position to help address some of these problems? Because, you look at Almost Home, and they're pretty much full of cats all the time.
Oh yeah.
I don't think they've ever been at a point where they haven't had to turn cats away. It just seems like the cats go in and they stay there. And
I know we have a lot of cats, feral cats.
Mm-hmm.
You get down by the river, or even come to my neighborhood over by Corpus Christi Church, behind Corpus Christi Church down in there. Lots of cats.
Yeah.
Wow. Just a bunch. I didn't know that until in the last few years.
So, like I said, it boils down to the budgeting process and what funds we want to allocate. And last night we had the conversation about police and fire as well. And the county emergency management bought a drone this year. So I told Roger
they did. All right.
My annual request that I have for our police department to have a drone, I can finally take that off the table, since we can use the emergency management one. Which has been useful. I know they used it up at that fire up in Humboldt, and there's a variety of different ways that can be extraordinarily useful.
Yeah, what was that fire? That wasn't that long ago.
I can't remember the name of the company. It's on the north side of Humboldt. Big warehouse type structure.
I can't think of it either.
But and then the other part too is with the police department. We had a lengthier conversation last year. My position is I would like to add an additional officer per shift to the police department. it's we're talking about one officer, and I don't think anybody at the police station would object to that, to getting some more assistance in there. Seems like we continually have the discussion of prioritization of calls.
Yes.
When we have our patrol officers out there and we have, a group of calls all at once, what's the priority? Adding an additional officer to alleviate any of that need to prioritize, or some of that need to prioritize, is well worth it, in my opinion. The difficulty we have with that is that those officers are funded out of the general fund, and every year, well before, probably as early as I was born, has been maxed out of our general fund, because it's set at $8.10 per $1,000 of your taxable value of your home. That number has stayed the same since 1977, the same as the emergency levy, which is 27 cents, maybe 32 cents per $1,000. And I've had some conversations with representatives at the State House in terms of, can we get that raised slightly? It hasn't moved since 1977. Even just a slight raise in that would give a city like Fort Dodge so much more financial flexibility to specifically, if you just did the emergency one, to potentially utilize that to add these additional officers.
You're dealing with a deep ideology there when you start talking about that sort of thing. The Republicans exist because they can go to their constituents and say, I'm going to keep your taxes low, and I'm going to fight every tax increase ever.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do that too, by the way.
Yeah.
And that sounds really good to people, except when they need an extra police officer or firefighter.
Yeah. And that's just throughout the past, year and a half, the realization is it's not going to happen in Des Moines. We're not going to see that adjustment.
No.
Which, I mean, it's not the lawmakers in Des Moines. They're not voting to raise their taxes. It would be your local governments that would be making that decision. And just the kind of informal feel I got from that conversation we had last year at budget time was that even your ardent people of no, don't raise my taxes, look at this and go, well, you want to add an extra police officer per shift? I'm okay with that.
When you get them in a room and put it that way, that's fine. But the override, some people, and I've noticed this the last 4 years, you just have to say Trump and there's a fight. And it's not quite as bad as taxes, but tax is a bad word.
Yeah.
If it's about a police officer, that's a different story.
Yeah.
That's an entirely different story. But the state still has you handcuffed, right? I mean,
oh yeah, we've got the max that we can budget for that general fund is set by that 810 levy. And then we've got that smaller, emergency levy that is substantially smaller. But again, those were set in 1977, have never been adjusted for inflation. Now you can make the argument that home values have risen in that same period of time.
43 years, 44 years.
But if you're going to make that argument, then my counter to that would be, well, your police department looks a heck of a lot different now than it looked in 1977 as well. We're talking body cameras. We're talking, Roger said last night, new body armor for each officer every 5 years. We got to cycle through those body cameras. All those things are expensive and are things that, are now a regular for every patrol officer that maybe were, a few were kept in the office back in 1977. They, wasn't alive in 77. I don't think our officers were walking around with bulletproof vests.
I was too, but I had a different relationship with the police at that time.
So that would be my counter is, we're dealing with a much different police department and law enforcement in general than we were in 1977. And I also commended Roger last night. I know 2020 was an extremely rough year for law enforcement, and we're seeing that in applicants to not only locally but across the nation. Is there's not many people signing up on these lists.
Why the hell would they?
Good question.
Fort Dodge isn't so bad, but why would you go to Kenosha, Wisconsin, for example, or why would you go anywhere or Portland and ask to be a police officer?
And that's where, there was a lot of conversation about, should law enforcement be responding to mental health calls, or should we take funds away from them and divert it someplace else? My approach on that is, no, we keep our funds with our law enforcement, but why not we we find other funds to put in that mental health prerogative. And Berry Hill's doing a fantastic job. We've got so many new mental health services in the past 2 years that we didn't have that we can utilize to hopefully keep.
I don't think it's enough. I
it's
really
not enough. No.
I think we have to remember Al Henderson,
Mhm.
a fine man, died tragically and needlessly in my mind. I think it was a massive failure of our community that Al Henderson is dead. That's exactly how I feel. We failed to come up with enough money to protect him from a man who was apparently mentally ill. And Nevin Conrad has been our guest again. Thanks for responding at the last minute and being on here.
No problem.
All right, Halter Dude here on Thursday. Jeff Halter, I'm going to try to get Greg Hora of the Pork Producers back tomorrow. I don't know for a fact if that'll get done. Sorry to say, Steve Peterson, the Farm Bureau, has decided to go in another direction. I hope somebody from the Farm Bureau can, Steve's place, he's irreplaceable, but maybe somebody else from the Farm Bureau will show up. It's 5 o'clock, KVFD 4 Dodge.
Hi, this is Leslie Segretti.
And I'm Tom Kreitler, and you can hear the Money Pit every Saturday afternoon from 4 to 6 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
No charges in the shooting of Jacob Blake. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. Kenosha County, Wisconsin DA Michael Gravely with the announcement after an investigation into the shooting by a white police officer of the black man. Police say officers were responding to a domestic violence call in August and that Blake was armed with a knife. Blake was shot in the back and he is now paralyzed.
The question, really the only issue in this case, would be, do they have a right to the privilege of self-defense?
And Gravely said the officers did have a right to defend themselves. He also said Blake would not be charged. The shooting sparked sometimes violent protests in Kenosha. Earlier today, an Illinois teen who fatally shot 2 people and wounded a third during those protests was in court. Kyle Rittenhouse pled not guilty to charges, including intentional homicide. Prosecutors say Rittenhouse, who was white, left his home in Illinois and traveled to Kenosha after the shooting of Blake when he learned of a call to protect businesses. Police say Rittenhouse opened fire with an assault-style rifle during protests in August. He claims he fired at 3 men in self-defense. Polls close in just under an hour in Georgia, where voters are casting ballots in 2 races that will determine which party controls the Senate.
Turnout has been steady here at this voting place in Fulton County, but already more than 3 million Georgia voters have cast early ballots. Now, typically, early voting favors Democrats, so today, Republicans have been making an all-out effort to get their supporters to the polls.
Fox's Jonathan Seri in Fulton County, Georgia. A federal judge rejecting President Trump's latest bid to overturn his election loss in Georgia. The judge called the suit to decertify the election beyond unprecedented and extraordinary. And he said the Secretary of State did nothing wrong, adding Congress has the sole power to decertify the election. Wall Street at the close, the Dow gained 167. America is listening to Fox News.
Hello? Hello, Mr. Crane. I'm calling about today's appointment. The tree is scheduled to fall on your RV at 2:14 today.
Any way we can reschedule? We're really enjoying our trip.
Oh, I'm sorry, but that's our only opening.
Can it just be a little tree?
Let me check. No, sorry, our file says it's a huge one.
RV owners can't schedule when things go wrong on the road. That's why there's Progressive, a leader in RV insurance.
Is it 2:14 p.m. or a.m.?
You know, I'm not sure. Can I put you on a brief hold?
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Newsmax TV is the biggest thing on cable news, with shows including Dick Morris, Rudy Giuliani, Michelle Malkin, Diamond and Silk, Mike Huckabee, Alan Dershowitz, and more. Every night, watch Newsmax's #1 show, Greg Kelly Reports. Greg Kelly tells you the truth about Trump. Newsmax is on all major cable systems. Check your guide or tell your operator you want Newsmax. 30 million Americans watch Newsmax TV. And download the Newsmax app on your smartphone. It's free, so get Newsmax TV anytime, anywhere.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News update, I'm Rob Jones. A Webster County man is facing first-degree arson charges stemming from an incident on December 17th. Police say that 40-year-old Fort Dodge resident Patrick McGuire poured gasoline on a woman and all over a residence after trapping the woman under a mattress. McGuire is accused of then filling the home with propane after opening a propane tank. The woman was able to escape the home. A Webster County man is facing multiple charges after being arrested last week in Greene County. 33-year-old Fort Dodge resident Jonathan Kennedy was arrested on an outstanding warrant last Thursday morning at the Casey's General Store in Grand Junction. The felony warrant was for an alleged burglary incident from early December. According to the police report, Kennedy was searched upon his arrest. The search turned up marijuana and meth along with stolen property. Kennedy was then charged with third or subsequent